Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is the Steve Jones Show as we start a new week here on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Matt Catrillo here with you. Steve will soon be there from the Sunbury Motors Studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. And like every Monday show, we're brought to you by our good friends at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Home, auto, life, business, all your latest insurance needs, they got you covered. You can visit them online at purdyinsurance.com. Their office is located on Market Street in Sunbury. Well, you heard it there in the update show from Steve and hearing from Jim Ferry on what was probably, it is the worst loss of the year, and as bad a loss as you can have at this point with everything on the line. At home, nonetheless. I get, COVID, whatever, but you still got to be able to do that at home. And we just had Joe Lunardi on Friday, who said, Penn State will make or break themselves. I won't have to do the deciding. Well, guess what? I think the fate has been decided unless somehow Penn State just runs the table and wins the Big Ten championship, which I don't think I see happening now at this point, Steve. That was not good.
Well, okay. Let me start with this, then I'll get into a couple things with that. I think I've made it very plain during the course of a long career, which I hope is even longer. But look, I never refer to Penn State as we or us, as you know. But everybody knows, obviously, I want them to win. Okay, no getting around. But it's also important where you try to set things up, where you're honest with the audience about what's either about to transpire or what is transpiring. I opened yesterday's game with anything about as honest an assessment as to what the game meant. I opened the game by saying there are certain games on your schedule that you feel are must-wins. And then there are also certain games on your schedule that fall into the category of can't lose. I said this falls into the category of can't lose. And they lost. In other words, doesn't matter what the final score of the stupid thing is, this is a game you can't lose. In other words, you can't afford to lose this game. You just got to figure out some way to win it, and then you go on, and now you roll the dice and take your chances with a number one seed on Thursday night. Now, you're going to see some fraud like, hey, the AP says that Ohio State is ranked 13th. No, boys and girls, okay? The NCAA came out with its top 4 seeds for the first time this weekend. They're on the one line, okay? It's Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, Ohio State. So in a week where Dick and I both thought they had a very good chance of sweeping and winning at Michigan State and Nebraska, they lost both by a combined total of 3 points. The last 8 minutes should tell you everything about why that game was in the category of, hey, look, you can't lose this game. In the final 8 minutes, Penn State ran off 12 unanswered points. That means Nebraska didn't score for 8 minutes. And the bottom line is this. When you're doing that over an 8-minute span, you probably should have run off 20 unanswered points, not 12. So I'm going to get to an email. Dick and I talked afterward. And we're like, okay, and I basically said to Dick, I said, maybe you ought to get out of here tonight and not wait till tomorrow. And he took my advice and he left. Okay. And when he got back, he then sent me an email this morning. Actually, it was a text message this morning. And here's the text message. Let's see. I can't stand working with you. Wish you would quit. But okay, now let's get to the other part. No, just kidding. Steve, I went back to look at the numbers of the last 4 games. Because the last 4 games, the problem has been not scoring. Okay? Not scoring is why they've lost. After outscoring teams for a long period of time. Went back, Steve, and looked at the last 4 numbers to see if they match with what you and I are looking at. Interestingly, they really don't. So I'm not sure what this means. Key energy stats for this team are offensive rebounds and steals. Good. Last 4 games, 49 offensive rebounds. All right, it's better than 12 a game. Now, we'll get to some of the reasons why in a moment. 25 steals. 6 per game. That's a little bit low, but they've forced 47 turnovers. So that means when you look at that, 49 offensive rebounds, 25 steals, 47 turnovers, as Dick writes here, all those extra chances are why they beat Maryland and why they led late against Michigan State and Nebraska despite not shooting well. Steal numbers likely would have been higher a month ago. But other than yesterday, teams have been walking it up and creating fewer possessions. So now we'll go back to Tuesday night. We had made the point about Wisconsin and Maryland playing at slow paces. They play at a slow pace to begin with. Michigan State does not. And at the under 12 timeout in the first half, I came out of the break and said, Dick, this is what I'm noticing so far. I said, notice how Michigan State is not taking a shot until under 6. Michigan State loves to run. They refused to run against Penn State. They had to ratchet down the possessions and did, and they got away with it. So as Dick says, until yesterday, teams have been walking it up, so fewer possessions in the games. No doubt. Yesterday, not true. Nebraska's ran up and down the floor. I still don't see the same jump from a few weeks ago, Steve. Looked tired mentally and physically. He and I really feel strongly about that. Now, let's see. I'll get to the I'll skip down to the bottom. The Big Ten free throw discrepancy has essentially been eliminated. Remember I was telling you how ridiculous it was that Penn State was getting fewer attempts altogether in every game, game after game, fewer attempts than the other team was making, which is absurd. I mean, in the Big Ten, everybody's physical. Well, that free throw discrepancy has essentially been eliminated. So that's not an issue. That's out. Now let's get to the issue. Besides, obviously, the mental and physical fatigue with everything. There have been 154 misses in the last 4 games. Thus, a lot of opportunities, going back to the first sentence, for offensive rebounds. But the 31.8% offensive rebound percentage that they have is similar to the season, and by the way, is easily number 1 in the Big Ten. So they've been a good offensive rebounding team all year. There's just more offensive rebounds available right now. The bottom line is the obvious that you and I have been talking about. In the last 4 games, Penn State is 80 of 234 from the field. 34.2%. Now remember, the last 3 games, won by 5, lost by 2, lost by 1. Doing that while still shooting 34.2%. As you know, I break down on my chart 2-point and 3-point percentage, offense and defense. Well, here's the offense breakdown. Dick gave me 55 of 133, 41.4% on twos. 41.4% on twos. 25 of 101 on threes, 24.8%. Now here's the baffling one. In the same 4 games, they're 45 of 55 at the free throw line, 82%. They're shooting a higher percentage at the free throw line than they did the rest of the season. Everything else right now is bottomed out. And I know, there's always the hot shot on the board. There's always the hot shot at the tailgate. Football, basketball. It's the scheme. Look at the offense they run. Are you watching what we're watching? I mean, really, are you watching what we're watching? Yesterday, in particular, one open shot after another. Now, Jamari Wheeler is missing open shots, all right? To be frank with you, again, we're having a totally honest conversation here about this. Jamari Wheeler's open for a reason. The other team wants him to shoot. Unless he makes 2 of them, not one, he has to make 2 of them for them to really come out and play him. John Harrah goes out, you're obviously not going to do this. Like when Kofi Coburn goes out, you're going to slough way off of him. All right, same thing with Johnny, because Johnny's not going to shoot it. Wheeler can shoot it, but you're not going to play him to do, okay? You want him to shoot that shot. Seth Lundy, you don't. Myron Jones, you don't. Miles Dredd, you don't. And even though Isaiah Brockington has gone a while since hitting a 3, Zay only takes 1 of them a game, unless it's late shot clock. He usually just tries taking 1 a game. You look at it, it's like, okay, he's 0-1, 0-1, 0-1. But you have to play out on Brockington for this reason. Brockington can hit the 15 to 17-foot jumper. Because he hits the 15 to 17-foot jumper, when he catches the ball at the three-point line, you can't lay off of him. Because all he has to do is step in like 2-3 steps, and he can take the shot. So you got to play out on him, too. They're getting open shots. Miles Dredd can put the game away with a wide-open 3 in the corner. Wide open. Can put the game away. Okay? Well, guess what? Sometimes you miss it. Okay? The set they ran at the end of the Michigan State game. On the wing, wide-open 3, Miles Dredd. Right on line, just missed. Because right now, for whatever reason, you have a team-wide shooting slump. And they're getting open shots. Now, the last play of the game, I like the last play of the game that Jim called for. They take him, run Brockington to a strong hand, his left, goes in there, and I didn't think there was a foul in that play. I really didn't. Right? He just got tied up on the thing. All right. Now, I think Penn State's spacing was lousy. Penn State has to do a better job of spacing. So whether you watch Michigan, Michigan has superior spacing. It's part of the NBA concepts that Juwan Howard has, where the spacing is terrific and there are options off the spacing. Penn State, when Penn State's been running well this year, they've had great spacing, and they had some great spacing yesterday. Well, again, it wasn't clogged up yesterday, not in the least. They had one wide open shot after another, and he just didn't hit it. Now, here's where the players made a mistake yesterday, and this is a big mistake. Every game I do when it gets under 4 minutes, and it's close, and they've played 17 games this year. 8 of the 17 have been 5 points or less. I always, off of every timeout, the under 4 and then any coach timeout, I give a game reset. Score, team fouls, timeouts remaining, possession arrow, who's in foul trouble. Simple. When I give you the fouls, I give them for 2 reasons. So let's take yesterday. I told you that Nebraska had 18 fouls. That meant any foul, Penn State is at the line, it's 1+1. Unless it's a shooting foul, it's 2. But any foul is going to put them at the line. I told you that Penn State had 14 fouls. And I explained the dual purpose of that. In other words, on a foul, Nebraska's not shooting. And number 2, if Nebraska got the ball, Penn State had 2 fouls to give. When Nebraska got the ball on a live ball turnover, that's the key. The bench was yelling to foul as quickly as possible. Now, why? To stop him from scoring? Yeah, that's one, but that's not the entire reason. Okay? Obviously, you want to stop him from scoring before he takes a shot. But the other part is, because it's a live ball turnover, everybody, it becomes a scramble drill. Okay? By committing the foul, you now can set your defense up. And by the way, still had the luxury of another foul to give. And the players on the play had some brain slippage and did not do. The bench was yelling, foul him, foul him. Right? Not in the shot, just foul him. Right? That way we'll set up the defense. And you saw, if you watched the Illinois-Nebraska game, you saw Nebraska at the end of that game try and run a play. And they never even got a shot up. They got all fouled up. McGowan's had it. Allen came over. We don't know what Allen was doing. We think Allen thought he was setting a screen. All he did was bring his man with him and create a double team. And in 2021, this was the perfect pandemic reaction. Fred Hoiberg was so mad at his team on that play Friday night, he ripped off his mask and he threw it to the floor. Okay, now that's 2021 right there. But that's why you foul there. You foul on that particular, and the bench was yelling to foul him. They were well aware of what the team foul situation was. Again, it's under that category. There are games that fall into the category of, boy, you feel like this is a must-win, a line-in-the-sand game. And then there are a couple of games along the way where you say, you know what, this is in the category of game you can't lose. Yesterday was under that category of game you can't lose, and they did. I think that's a fair assessment of what we saw. It also kept Matt from talking about the Eagles and Zach Ertz. All right.
Yes, another frustrating situation. That's another topic for another day.
These are your people.
Yep.
See, the difference is I'm able to calmly talk about what was an on-the-floor disaster yesterday in a calm, reasonable, logical way. Okay? Not once did I call for anybody to be fired.
No, and to be fair, I think there was fault on both sides yesterday, but definitely with the players, and that last is mostly on the players. You kind of know the situation.
Well, especially in an empty arena. I know they're piping in noise, but they can hear you. Okay? They can hear you. They're yelling foul. We can see them yelling foul. Yeah? You know, what terrible coaching at the end. Yeah, the group that was yelling foul him. Yeah, you're right. That's horrible. Okay. Go back to your keyboard. All right, back with more in a moment. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
This winter has been brutal, but at least I can still get around. Whew, in my new all-wheel drive Kia from Sunbury Motors Kia.
We wanna see you in a Kia. Sunbury
Sunbury Motors Kia makes getting around easy with the all-new, completely redesigned 2021 Kia Sorento. You'll love the new look inside and out. Sunbury Motors Kia has 6 in stock with 1.9% financing for up to 66 months. 2021 Kia Sorentos start at $31,490. That's not the only all-wheel drive Sunbury Motors Kia has to help you get around. The 2021 Kia Sportage is ready for winter adventures and starts at $23,464. And there's 23 to choose from. Also, check out the 2021 all-wheel drive Seltos and K5. Remember, every new Kia comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Let the adventure begin at Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf. Financing through KMF. Warranties and limited powertrain warranty. For details, see dealer or go to kia.com.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show is brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury, go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business. They'll do whatever they can to save you money. That includes bundles. They'll make sure you're insured. They'll get you the best price. And customer service means everything to them. All at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. We're in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, great pre-owned inventory. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. With that, we now bring in a man who will never mention, and nor will we ever mention, the name again to him of any muscle-bound golfer, because he is a purist on the course, Nate Bauer.
Hey, that dude doesn't even matter anymore now that Spieth's back.
Yeah, your guy is back. I mean, Spieth is back. You know,
back.
It's like he is back. You ever interview Spieth?
No, I mean, it's the one thing that my job does not give me the opportunity to do. Otherwise, I would hang out with golfers all the time.
Yeah, good guy. You'd like him. Very, very humble, very down to earth. So, okay. So let's start with Tim Banks. Pete Thamel's reporting that not just being a candidate, but he thinks that he's on the verge of taking the Tennessee defensive coordinator job. What's your information? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's. I guess that's my jumping off point is that I'm not sure what efforts, if any, are being made to retain Tim Banks at Penn State. Right? I mean, certainly James Franklin has had what I would describe as a long history now of, his assistants being poached, right? And so, sometimes it's for an obvious promotion, which he has long been, in favor of. He's never going to stand in the way of a guy getting, a head coaching gig or a coordinator gig. But if this report to Tennessee is accurate and it's the sole DC job, then obviously, I mean, Penn State's probably not going to be able to do anything to convince him to stay. But if it's a co-DC role, which is what he already is with Brent Pry at Penn State, then, that would be a different story and something that I would guess James Franklin is probably trying to stand in the way of. Obviously, by offering better compensation here at Penn State.
Right. And let's face it, it's not just the ability to be a sole defensive coordinator, but also there's money that's involved in this as well. And Tennessee has been known to be very free with the football money. How about that?
Yeah. No, in a variety of ways, right, Steve?
Variety of ways, yes. Variety of ways.
No, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, I was chatting with a buddy earlier today. James Franklin's coaching tree is remarkable at this point. I mean, the number of guys that have been through Penn State, during his tenure and have gone on to take bigger, better jobs is pretty remarkable given the context of Penn State's most recent history, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about 195 million combined years on Penn State's coaching staff under Joe Paterno, and that's just not the case anymore. That's just not the new reality, at Penn State.
And in the broadcast booth. All right, so, all right. I opened yesterday's basketball broadcast, and, you try to be frank with everybody up front with about what the stakes of the day happen to be. And I said there are certain games that are under the line in the sand, need to win this game. I said there are also games on the schedule that, quote, you can't lose. I said this is one of the games. They lost it. Your thought, the last four games, your thoughts on what was seen then, which dovetails into what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I think is it the one that buries them? No, not necessarily, given the fact that there are so many opportunities that continue to exist, right? I mean, if you knock off 4 top 25 teams on your way out, then sure, you're going to put yourself back in the conversation. But that's at this point, that's a distraction from the reality of what this team is, right? And what this team is currently is one that can't score. And you just
which is shocking because that's not what they were before this.
Correct, and it's just a complete departure from the thing that they had going for them, the thing that made them such a potent team. You knew that it wasn't going to happen every single night, but it was their variety of scoring, right? It wasn't just that Myron Jones could go off for 20; it's that Brockington could go off for 20. Lundy could go off for 20. You have these combinations of scorers who can all do it in different ways, and that's supposed to be, your ammunition. That's supposed to be what allows you to compensate for the fact that, there are some deficiencies elsewhere in terms of what they're able to do. But, look, so they scored 61 yesterday. They've had 4 straight games, scoring 61 or fewer points, which is essentially, other than the Michigan game earlier in the season, those are like the 4 lowest scoring games that they've had all year. And they're all happening all in a row. And they managed to get a win in one of them against Maryland. But overall,
they should have won 3.
They've just lost their ability to compete the way that they need to be able to win games at this level.
Well, Dick Girardi sat down and ran numbers this morning and sent it to me. And he went through everything. Their offensive rebounding is still terrific. Their steal numbers, while not where they were before, are still great. They're forcing turnovers, so they're getting extra chances. Yep. But the bottom line is, and by the way, the free throw discrepancy, which was horrible and illogical before for various reasons, and I will not leave that up to your imagination, has been eliminated.
Yeah,
I mean, that's been eliminated. That's not even in the conversation anymore. Yep. Penn State in the last 4 games is 80 of 234 from the field, 34.2%. In other words, they're averaging 20 baskets a game, too. They're 55 of 133, 41.4% on twos. 25 of 101, 24.8% on threes. And then to really tell you that life is screwy, they're 45 of 55, 82% at the line. I mean,
yep.
Figure that out.
Yep. No, look, I don't think that there's, over the years we've always had these conversations about whether or not they're getting open shots, right? Coaching is about getting open shots. You can't make the shot go in, but your ability as a coach generally speaking, in the profession, is rated on your ability to get open looks for your guys.
Exactly.
I think that the quality of the shot has been there for the majority of the past 4 games, but they just don't go in. I mean, it's uncanny, but every time yesterday, and now I'm just speaking about yesterday. Every time that Penn State had the opportunity to produce any type of run, I mean, they really they went on a 12-0 run, I guess, when they were down 11 to finish the game because Nebraska just completely clammed up and couldn't score at all. But that wasn't even really a run, right? Like, Penn State had so many opportunities to make difference-making baskets that would go halfway down and pop out. Just good looks that just did not go in. And even at the very end, you've got this extended possession for a minute in crunch time. You get 2 offensive rebounds. And 2 great looks. It just, the opportunities have been there. Penn State has not been able to capitalize on them. And as a result, they're in huge trouble.
Well, and that's the issue on the shooting part. You're right about the open shots, because Dick and I have you and I know. You listen to some of the broadcasts. That's where it doubles our ratings. That we'll talk about it's an open shot or it's contested. Yep. They've had a lot of open shots during the course of this 4-game streak. A lot of open shots. Yesterday, they had 1 open shot after another. Now let's and you got to be honest with the audience, okay? I don't include Jamari Wheeler in that open shot stuff. I don't.
Yep.
And the reason I don't is he is open for a reason. Okay? Yep. He has to make a couple in a game for somebody to come out and finally play him. So he's open for a reason, right? The other guys are not, and they're just missing. I mean, can you dial up a better end of the game play for Miles Dredd at Michigan State?
Yep.
Right? Miles Dredd, he's open in the corner, wide open.
Yep.
I mean, I'm telling you, that's a practice gym jumper.
Yep. And that's, it's hard because it's not, Jim Ferry said it yesterday, it's not for lack of trying. It's that, Miles Dredd's a great kid. Myron Jones is a great kid. Brockington, great kids. They're trying really, really hard. And certainly from my end, and I know from your end, you don't want to make it seem like you're piling on, but that's their job, right?
Sure it
their
is.
Job is to make shots, given those opportunities. In those very specific situations. That's what separates winning and losing. You had a Nebraska team who did everything that it possibly could to give that game away.
Usually you go on a 12. There are 2 ways of going on a 12-0 run, Nate. One is with a sledgehammer. The other one is with paper cuts. Okay?
Yep.
That was 8 minutes of paper cuts.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there are. It's hard to describe after the fact, but there are these moments where games can be controlled. Games that aren't in control can be taken by one team or the other. And Nebraska had those opportunities too, right? When Penn State was really struggling shooting the ball at the beginning of the second half, Nebraska had a chance to put that game away, and they didn't. Right? They went up 11, but it was never really in Nebraska's control. Penn State had that same opportunity coming down the home stretch, and it just was not. It was not to be, and you can live with that if you haven't lost all of those previous opportunities. It's not that yesterday happened. It's that Michigan State happened. It's that at Ohio State happened. It's that at Indiana happened. It's that Seton Hall happened. All of those things have been right. I mean, they've all contributed to this issue.
Nate, they've played 17 games this season. 8 of the 17 have been decided by 5 points or less.
Yeah.
So the combination of close games, great competition. That's why you play the number one schedule. Like everybody else, now everybody's dealing with this part, the COVID part, but they had a pause. They had to come out of it. They had some condensed games, but everybody's dealing with COVID. But it's still an issue. And other outside circumstances, do you think the team at this point has hit a wall mentally and physically? Because you can see the efforts there, but, like, there's not the same jump as before.
Yeah, I mean, I always struggle with this because I don't live in their head, right? And I mean, one thing that comes to mind for me is even last year, Miles Dredd, or maybe it was 2 years ago, Miles Dredd was asked about being in a shooting slump, and he was like, they practice so much, right? Like, they play the game so much that things that look like slumps to us are,
yeah, but I'm not,
we have such a very limited window of seeing it. And so in the span of Miles Dredd's career, he's been having slumps forever. Right?
Yeah, but Nate, I'm not talking about the shooting part. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that extra jump where the body is willing. It's not quite like you'll get a deflection, but not quite get the steal. You'll get to a rotation, but you're a half step. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not, the shooting part happens. I mean, that happens.
Yeah. But I would argue that they had it in the last 8 minutes yesterday. That they had, I mean, that, Jamari Wheeler's steal, some of the pressure stuff that they had in the three-quarter court.
Right.
John Hara, again, some of these offensive rebounds are incredible. Again, like they had a possession for, a minute and 8 seconds, right. And then they have a turnover, and that's what loses it for them.
Live ball turnover, but again, they make the mental mistake as players because the bench was yelling foul.
Yep.
The bench was yelling to foul.
Yep.
And the players didn't foul him. In other words, not so he doesn't score. Okay, let's take the obvious low-hanging fruit off the table. It's so you can set your defense.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and I asked Ferry yesterday after the game whether or not he had considered at any point, after the first offensive and this is a basketball thing that
right.
Certainly there are others who are smarter than me, but after the first offensive rebound, I thought maybe they could have spent a timeout to set the offense again. But he just said that he didn't want to give the opportunity for Nebraska to set its defense, and I understand that. That's basketball. It's jazz. They know what they're doing. They have a call. They make it on the floor, and you go. But it seemed so frenetic. There wasn't a composure to the way that they were able to operate in the last 2 minutes. And on a larger scale, you start to wonder if that's just history building on itself. It's just one game after another, after another, after another. It just, starts to play into how you perform in those situations.
Well, it's never been an issue for you. All right.
That's right.
Thank you so much. There's no such thing in your world as physical or mental fatigue.
I was just watching the Golf Channel, and Jordan Spieth said that his failure was a physical one yesterday, and they rejected it outright. They said, no, you don't get to do that. It's the easy excuse when you're not having success, because if you acknowledge that it's a mental issue, then you've got all of these things that you have, this maze that's hard to understand that you have to sort through. Whereas the physical is something tangible, it's something that you can try to correct. And so that's golf, but I think there is some application on the basketball side here as well.
Well, based on what I do, there's no mental fatigue. All right. Nate, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you having me.
Nate Bauer, Blue White Illustrated. We'll come back with more in a moment. Again, today's show has a purpose behind it. So far, we have kept Eagles complaining to an absolute minimum because based on what I'm reading, those segments have led to ratings collapse. We want more positive stories. Okay, back with more in a moment.
Hi, this is Susan from Purdy Insurance. 2021 has begun, and this is the perfect time to make sure you're protecting what matters most. Whether it be you, your family, or your business, we have the experience and knowledge you need to help navigate through the process. Our office remains available to service our new and current clients by phone at 570-286-5855, by email, and by appointment. Purdy Insurance, what can we do for you?